Hey folks, Brian got done doing some preparation work stuff, things I do for church, and found that, hey, I've got some time this evening, so I figured I'd go ahead and kick off the next section of my review of the Red Book of Magic. So now we're actually starting the Rune Magic section, which goes through the alphabet, and then there's the Spirit Magic section. So for the next quite a while, we'll discuss, or I'll reference some rune magic spells and stuff. So anyway, what is rune magic, right? We kind of discussed this earlier. But it notes here that the more rune magic used in the world, the more that deity manifests. Interesting. Good for campaign world stuff. How does rune magic appear, sound, and feel? The caster takes on the aspect of the deity and becomes somehow greater, right? The god is manifesting in the world through the caster, if only for a moment. As a result, almost always there are sensory manifestations with rune magic. You will know when someone casts rune magic. I know in my game, we have a tendency to kind of gloss over this, but I try to remember on occasion, you see this happen, right? Okay, so the caster might appear to grow larger, though the actual size is not affected. They may resemble the image of the deity. They may glow with a light that casts no shadow. They may have crackling lightning between their fingertips. The various types of manifestations, that's up between the player and the GM, range all across all the senses, to include non-human senses like dark sense and earth sense. Good to know. This, however, say that the specific manifestations of a rune spell will vary by cult, as they should, right? Because they're tied to the runes you're using to cast those spells, at least in my opinion. Okay, and there's a little call block here on common rune magic, because everybody knows common rune magic if they're initiated, except for there are certain cults that don't get all of them. But common rune spells are marked with the R or the magic rune, right? But do we have a description of all of the rest of the runes? Because we've got spells that say they've got the image of the rune and then one point and ranged or whatever and all other stuff. They don't really say what that rune is. And technically, we should by now, be familiar enough that we don't have to look it up in the Runequest book. But hey, we talk about the magic rune here. Why not have a list of all of the other runes so it's an easy reference within the book itself? A couple of things about common rune spells, right? There are some common rune spells that players should be using all the time. Now, I know in my campaign, they use Heal Wound all the time. But there are other things like Dismiss Magic. Extension, I'll probably touch on that when we get to the extension spell itself, but there are defense spells that I think extension would work fantastic for. Cast your shield 3, leave it on for a season, that kind of thing. Find enemy. No one has ever used find enemy. Multi-spell. This is actually thought with my baboon ambush. If watching my other videos, I've got campaign reviews and some baboons ambushed the players. And as we were playing through the session, going, these guys have got rune points. They should be doing multi-spell and nailing these guys with 3 and 4 point disruption instead of 1 disruption at a time. Spirit block. This actually came up in an after game conversation with our shaman player, because we're talking about in my Glorantha, right? If you want a 6 point heal spell, you've got to find a spirit who's probably got 5d6 plus 6 power. Significant power. They're hard to get, right? But there are things you can do, like cast spirit block and get that spirit block up. So even though he does damage to you, or it does damage to you, it doesn't nail you in 1 round or 2, like what happened to the player's character. And then warding. No one's been using warding, although generally we're not staying. Oh, they have a couple times. Skunk been staying outside overnight. Generally, they're going from town to village, the kind of thing. but not always. Okay, so characteristics of rune spells. Again, 15 minutes, 160 meters is a standard. Again, they are twice as strong as spirit magics and sorcery at the same point cost. Most rune magic spells are cast on strike rank 1. And this actually come into not play, but turning their discussion in my campaign where guys are fight, fight, fight. But I've got these strike ranks left over. Can I throw this? I want to attack, but then throw this rune magic spell afterwards. So we haven't really messed with that much, but that's can you do that? Ritual spells generally take 1 hour to cast per point of the spell. Nowhere else is that sentence mentioned. Very important for here. Remember, that gives you a plus 35. Stackable rune magic, right? If additional magic points are added. All rune magic spells initially. I thought I had gone through and checked all this stuff, sorry. Okay, if it's stackable, you get a more powerful effect out of the spell. Roger that. All stacked rune spells are cast on one target in a single melee round. But it's saying that stacking is actually stacking rune points, right? They actually go into here. The last sentence says, if additional magic points are added to the spell, it takes effect on strike rank 1 plus 1 strike rank for each magic point added after the first. I take that after the first stuff. That just messes up my math. But anyway, so it will take longer if you're boosting with magic points. If you're stacking with rune points, it doesn't use word boost. It should say boost in here to help specify. There should be a difference between stacking and boosting. And that's going to come up here in a minute. Okay, one use rune spells. Remember, these cannot be restored. So once you cast them, they're gone. Unless you get a critical success, in which case you retain that rune point, you get it for free. Get the spell for free. Also, if you fail, no points are spent, but if you fumble, the rune points are spent permanently. They're gone. Okay, they got a little call out box on devising new rune spells. This specific set of rules, suggestions kind of thing, are specifically tied to creating spells for any new rune cult. Create for any new cult. Okay, so if you create a new cult, these are the kind of directions, parameters you should use when creating new spells for that new cult, rather than creating new spells for the cults we already have. So I won't mess with that. But again, rune magic is lending rune magic to mortals. There's a fine line that is hugely important to the gods of Glorantha about lending rune magic to the mortal realm and actually doesn't say here, but actually being involved with the mortal realm, right? Has to do with the God's War and the net and all that good stuff. Okay, rune spell descriptions. Again, spells identified with the R, the magic rune, can be cast with any rune affinity. True. What about the other ones? What are they? Anyway, alphabetical order. So we're starting with A. Absorption, 2-to-1 kind of stuff. You soak it up, but you get 2 magic points for every rune point you absorb, or 1 for each spirit magic, 1 for each sorcery, I would imagine. It doesn't really say that here, but that's what I guess. Now, you can get magic points in excess of your power, and they're trapped in your aura. You can use those as you like, right? But when the spell expires, after that 15 minutes, those excess magic points out higher than your power, they dissipate. Good, like that. You can cast absorption on somebody else, but you still get the magic points. I like that. Cast absorption on all your fellow adventurers. Whenever spell gets cast, you get extra magic points. I like that. Okay, accelerate growth. Matures a plant by 1 year and 15 minutes. Every stacked. Remember, words mean things. Every stacked adds a year to the maturity. This is permanent. It could be 1 tree, 1 square meter of bush or ground, 1 seed. But that's the thing, one thing. Okay, a fixed darkness. And we actually used this in my first campaign, the first scenario of my first campaign. There was a fixed darkness thing because they were doing a prisoner exchange through the darkness. Okay, so it's cast at night, 10 by 10 by 10, 1,000 cubic meters, and it's fixed in place. It remains even after sunrise, and it's exactly as dark as it was when the spell was cast throughout the day. So if you walk into it with light, torch or lantern or something, it's going to light it up just like it would have if it was nighttime there. So obviously, clearly visible during the daylight, there's this black thing out there. Extension does not affect this spell. Additional points stacked increase the volume by another 1,000 cubic meters. Why does extension not affect the spell? Maybe because it lasts all day? Okay. Agony. The caster targets a single victim and must overcome their power on the resistance table. How many different ways can we say that? At least 3 that I'm aware of, and we're going to hit them in this first section of A spells, right? Okay, if the caster succeeds, both the target and the caster fall to the ground writhing in pain. The target, though, also suffers a d6 of total damage to total hit points. Interesting. Okay. That reminds me. Somebody had mentioned in one of my comments from my first video on this review was, it'd be handy to know what cults these spells are associated with. Yeah, you can pull some of it out on occasion when it says things like must be cast on initiative bloody tusk cult, that kind of thing. Okay, it's kind of obvious there. And it's not in our room, so it's not everybody. So it's tied to at least one, if not more than one, right? Cult. Would it be nice? Yeah. We're going to wait for the cults book to come out for that. Okay. Alter creature. When the priest casts a spell on a creature and makes a successful resistance roll of power versus power, second time we said it a different way, the roll of the creature is determined by the survival covenant. It's reversed. So if you cast it on, these are all Praxian things, right? You can only cast it on Praxians, who were involved with the survival covenant in the first place. And I don't know about this on the periphery. Waha had a thing where there was a competition, and whoever won got to be intelligent, sentient, right? Have intelligence and charisma, right? And the rest are just dumb animals. And there's a rumor that the Morocants cheated, and that's why the Morocants are upright marsupial. Is that the right word? Well, anyway, and then the humans are herdmen, right? They're unintelligent people. Okay, so it gets reversed. So you could cast this on a llama or a bison or an impala or whatever, and all of a sudden it's got intelligence and charisma, and it can speak Praxian, and it has the original text skills it had, plus modifier from its new intelligence. It can learn new skills and new spells. Their outlook on life, though, is still like the beast they were, right? Until they're taught otherwise. So there's an option there. Okay, it takes a full round. There's no such thing as a full round. There's a full turn. There's a melee round. What they meant was it takes a full melee round toward the transmutation. We know this because it says from strike rank 1 to strike rank 12. Okay. It does mention that dismiss magic or neutralize rune. Neutralize rune affects rune magic spells. I had not thought about that. But of course, it has to be cast during the time it's being done, and for most rune spells, they're instantaneous, strike rank 1, except for those rituals, right? That will break the spell. And so it has no effect. Otherwise, if you complete the spell, it's permanent. Okay. If this spell is cast on a person, right? A bison rider, for example, they lose their intelligence and charisma. They retain any non-weapon attack skills, if they got fist and kick. They forget all the other weapon skills and spells and all the other good stuff. If they have any bound spirits, they're freed, like if they've been killed. So it was interesting. However, if they have an allied spirit, the allied spirit remains, but it's now linked to a creature that cannot understand language. Although they can be taught simple commands. There we go. Alter spirit of disease. You have to make a potion for the disease you desire. The new disease you want the spirit to hold, because you then bind the spirit to the potion container. The spirit loses its old disease and gets this new one. By stacking the spell, you increase the number of diseases that the spirit carries. There is no limit to the number of diseases a spirit can carry. Says here, though there is no gain for using the same disease twice. If you encounter a disease, the same disease multiple times, don't you have to save against it each time? I think so. Okay, analyze magic. Gives you a true statement about a function of a magical item, magical entity, or magical substance. Each point you stack adds an additional truth. You need to cast them all at once because if you cast them separately, you could learn the same truth over and over again. Okay, animate war tree. I really like these war tree things because my elves have war trees and lots of them. Okay, so the animate war tree has to be cast on a war tree that the caster has already created with the create war tree. That makes sense, but it has to be that caster. You can only cast animate on your war trees. Okay, I can get along with that, right? It then has it's awakened. It becomes capable of motion and combat for 6 hours. If you try to cast awake animate war tree on somebody else's created war tree, it doesn't work. The war tree can attack with its branches. The attack skill is Dex times 5. It does a d6 damage plus its damage bonus, which generally is like 3d6. It cannot parry or dodge. Dodge I can understand, but parry? Why can it not parry? They're weapons. These branches, they're weapons. Why can they not parry? It can only use one branch at a time. But if that one branch breaks, it has another branch it can bring in. I just don't buy that. I'm sorry. It's kind of like this crushed kid scenario that I had in my game. Thing is circular, right? It's got 6 legs. It can spin around, right? How many legs does it need to stand up? How many legs does that leave for attacking? It can see all around itself. What's up with the one claw attack? Give it 3. Same with the war tree. It's got all kinds of branches, right? Well, it's got 1d6 plus 4 branches that it uses. Okay, so it's got 5 to 10 branches. 5 to 10, so number them off because they're going to take damage, right? They just have one front hex. A tree is connected to the earth. It's got 360-degree vision kind of thing. It can attack any hex, right? And if you're attacking a war tree, you're going to want to attack it from all sides to get as many attacks on it as you can. At least I think so. So I'm not sure how I would divide this 1d6 plus 4 branches. It can't really move, right? It's got movement, but it doesn't have. Oh, it does have move. It can move at 9. That's fast. Okay, disregard what I was just saying. I meant to look at this before, and I thought I did. So it can move. If it can move, why can it not dodge? So it's spinning. So it can always have. So it's got these 5 to 10 branches it can use. I would let them all attack. I would divvy it up between the 6 hexes that are around a tree and let it go at it. Spin, spin, attack, 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 spin, spin, attack, attack. Okay, here's an interesting tidbit though. The war tree's hit points are treated like those of weapons. So the trunk and each of the branches. A branch has 3d6 hit points, so 11. It's got 11 hit points. If you do, well, if it can't parry, how are you going to do? Well, if you're attacking the branch, it's like a limb, right? So if you attack and you end up hitting a branch number 3, you do damage to it. It's got 11 hit points. If you only do 10 points of damage, it doesn't happen. If you do 12 points of damage, that tree branch goes from 11 down to 10. That's how I'm interpreting treated like those of weapons. Because if I notice on here, okay, yeah, total hit points, special. So once the trunk and all the branches are down to 0 or less, the war tree dies. Yeah, it dies if its trunk Oh, dies if its trunk is reduced to 0 hit points. So once you get the trunk, which is half the time, right? You hit it 1 through 10. The war tree dies. Okay. Antlers. And I'm sure there's a handful of other spells in here like this, or this spell specifically applies to like all of the Praxian animal cults, right? You grow antlers on your head. It says they're a meter long, or up to a meter long. You gain a gore attack at your dex times 3 plus your manipulation, although it says melee weapon bonus, and your manipulation bonus, because there is no melee weapons modifier. There's manipulation modifier that applies to all melee weapons and all missile weapons and all shields. Still got an issue with that a little bit with the missile weapons, but that's okay. There's 1d10 damage plus your damage bonus, and you can gore each round as well as attack and parry dodge. You can always attack and parry. You can always parry and dodge whenever you attack. That doesn't matter. So why they put in there, I don't know. But you can gore each round as well as attack, right? And the gore attack must take place 3 strike ranks apart from any other regular attack that you make. So either 3 strike ranks before, really, or 3 strikes after. That's what I would say. But how is this any different than fighting with 2 weapons? If you're going to fight with 2 weapons, it's this strike rank plus this strike. If you're boxing, dex strike rank, size strike rank plus 4, dex strike rank, size strike rank plus 4, you're never going to get 2 boxing, 2 punches in boxing, unless you modify those rules. And this plus 3 strike ranks apart, which I want to say comes from an earlier edition of Runequest. That kind of makes some sense to me. I don't mind that. I just question, why is it different? Okay, appease earth. Sacrifices to the bloody tusk. We know which cult this belongs to, right? There are 3 forms: grain, blood. We can assume the third one is magic items, other treasures, because the next paragraph says that when magic items and other treasures of great worth, or more than a half dozen prisoners are sacrificed for this spell, the earth is appeased, the Tusker's mount of the sacrifices provider. These words, right? Whoever did the sacrifice, their mount, gets an increase in characteristics, a characteristic increase by 1 permanently, chosen by the writer, right? That's for magic items and other treasures, which I'm assuming is the third category because we didn't mention it previously. Half dozen prisoners, that's the blood sacrifice we talked about earlier, right? But what about the food sacrifice? Can you not give enough food sacrifice to get a +1? I would assume so. And no characteristic can be increased beyond max. Good to go. Okay, arouse passion. I have not used this one yet. So this spell adds 20 to the target's passion chosen by the caster, which means the caster needs to know what passions the target has, right? So that can either be through RP, or if there might be some kind of sense passion spell later on. I'm not familiar with yet. Haven't really looked. Okay. Alternatively, the caster can temporarily create a new passion that begins at 20%. Additional points stacked, words mean things, adds another 20%. Okay, Arrow of Light. This is cool. I like this one. I'm hoping it's Yamalio, but it may be just Yelm. Okay. Spell adds 1d6 damage to the total hit points of the opponent whose power is overcome. That's the third way we talked about this, right? By the caster. Armor does not protect, which is such a great thing for arrows because arrows don't really do crap damage. Sorry, they don't. Makes me wonder, though. Okay, Arrow Trance. Similar to, but different from. Oh, we haven't talked about extra. We're going to do the other way around. Yeah, do that the other way around. Arrow Trance doubles the caster's bow attack skill. They can use no other weapons. They cannot parry. They cannot use their bow as a club. They can only cast bow-related magic. Speed Dart, Muscle Missile. They cannot cast healing, except elves apparently can cast healing on their elf bow. But why would you want to cast healing on your elf bow? You can't use it to parry with. You're not doing any damage to it. And what about non-elves? Can you then also cast Repair on a regular bow? Why not? Okay. This is not a berserk spell. You are in a trance. You cannot eat, drink, sleep, or do anything except focus on your bow and your targets. Good to go. Azrelia's Cavern. An invisible barrier cube, or an invisible cubic barrier, 3 meters per side. Wind cannot blow through the barrier, rain and snow cannot penetrate it, and it blocks flames. Even a flood washing up against the barrier will wash up against the barrier harmlessly, right? Spells cast through the barrier, spells can be cast through the barrier, and creatures can cross it freely. Each additional rune point stacked, and again, we say stacked before, but we don't mention rune points specifically, but we do with this one, increases the size of the barrier. Good to go. What are some of the other effects? Are there any exposure type effects here? Like, will decrease the temperature variance of cold weather or for that hot weather based upon people inside? I don't know. Do you take damage from exposure? I think you do. When the temperature gets down to a certain point, you start taking damage. But if the wind's not blowing through and rain and snow's coming, you're nice and dry, and it's not no wind chill, I think it should be effective. Okay, attack soul enables the caster to engage a single chosen target in spirit combat without being discorporate. Cool. The target cannot resist this spell, but counter magic and similar magics will block it. And then about blocking, does that mean it affects it normally the way the spells are designed to affect it, or does it mean simply will not work? I have to wonder about that. It's a 1-point spell, but if you boost it, right, to get through counter magic, oh, here we go. It says spells like Spirit Block and Spirit Screen work normally. Well, those are for the Spirit Combat piece. It has nothing to do with casting the spell. It says, though, unlike Spirit Combat, the caster can break off or resume this attack at any time during the spell's duration. In other words, they don't need to do a Spirit Dance, nor do they need to be have a successful Spirit Combat to disengage. They can just pop off, pop back on. Attract attention. Single resist. You make the caster casts a single resistance roll using power. Everyone whose power would be overcome by that number, right, must look at the caster for a melee round. I'm assuming that's within 160 meters, range. The spell does not affect initiates or more advanced worshippers of Ziola Umbar, darkness goddess of I don't recall. Okay. Practical effects. Nice to have it down here. Affected enemies must direct all attacks towards the caster that round. It lasts for 15 minutes. Oh, the direction says must look at the caster for 1 melee round. Does that mean we make another roll every melee round for the 15 minutes to see who's? Well, the duration is special. It must be just 1 melee round. Okay, just 1 melee round. Any of the caster's friends can't attack anybody. Buildings to defend. Okay, Aurora. Cause the caster to glow with a clear, pale light shining over an area 10 meters in diameter. All enemies who enter must make a resistance roll with their power versus the caster's power. I think that's like the 4th way of saying that. Or they lose a magic point. And they need to check every melee round they're in the area. Now, for each extra point stacked, so we're talking about rune points here, increases either the diameter by 10 meters or the number of magic points lost by 1. I like that. Here's this block thing again. Counter magic, shield, and similar defensive spells block the effects of this spell. That mean automatically it just doesn't work? Or do they have their effect against this 1-point rune spell? Defense against attack. But those spells have to be cast before entering the Aurora. Okay, I guess. If the caster dies, spell ends. Okay, Awaken Loon. This is a 5-point rune spell. It's cast upon a specially prepared reed boat. These boats can vary from size from up to canoe to up to 30 meters long. They're obviously very ornately decorated, many types of feathers and stuff, right? But when this spell's cast, it permanently transforms that boat into a giant living loon. They actually give you a stat block for a 20-meter loon. The loon is telepathically connected to the caster, and the loon can carry passengers on its back, just like a boat of the same size. Axe Trance, similar to, but not exactly like, Arrow Trance. There we go. This spell must be boosted with magic points. Each magic point expended increases your axe skill by 10% for the spell's duration. It says the caster's one-handed or two-handed axe skill, right? Is that all of them? Or just the one? So if you're fighting with your battle axe, you got your axe trance up, but you're blocking. Can you parry? I believe so. Sorry, I'm just, sometimes I think I missed something. Okay, yeah, you can parry with your axe, right? You're just focused, right? So you parry with your axe, and your axe takes enough points of damage that it takes damage, so you pull another axe out, hand axe, or maybe your battle axe or your great axe kind of thing or something, right? Using a new weapon now. Does the axe transfer? I kind of think so. Okay, you can cast only weapon enhancing spells like Blade Sharp. You cannot cast other magic, including healing, though you can repair your axe. And we know we are parrying with this. It's not a berserker spell, you're in a trance. Again, you cannot eat, drink, sleep, or indeed do any of those things except focus on your axe and your enemies. Good to go. Axis Mundi creates a holy sanctuary 10 meters in diameter, or in radius. 10 meters in radius, this is huge. And it's got a number of effects. Okay, ancestral spirits can appear within the sanctuary without using the visibility spell. Acts as a beacon that increases a spirit's chance of finding their way to the caster. So that could be bad, right? When you cast Incarnate Ancestor within the sanctuary, it acts as a protective circle. Protective words mean things, right? Protective circle is a sorcery spell that you cast other spells onto, and everything within gets affected by those spells. My player's first sorcerer used Protective Circle a lot, and they would cast things like coordination and mobility and stuff like that. So everybody inside the circle got affected by those spells. Okay. And so you may jump on me and say, only sorcery spells can be cast on a Protective Circle. I don't recall offhand. I'd have to look it up. I don't care. Okay. So, Protective Circle. Okay, so when the summoned ancestor arrives, any ancestor spirit summoned within the Axis Mundi is disoriented for 1d6 rounds and cannot take any hostile action until the effects wear off. So that gives you d6 worth of rounds of, I don't know, doing spirit combat to drop it down to 0 magic points or something. I don't know. But it keeps hostile ones from attacking for a period of time. Okay, when you're a shaman and you're initiating your assistant, you can use this as a locus for the transition. It also attracts spirits that are aligned to the traditions of the cult and allows their active participation in holy day celebrations. Good to go. Spell lasts 15 minutes. Says it's stackable. But here we say it can be boosted with magic points. So is boosting magic points considered stacking? Words mean things, guys. Words mean things. Okay. Each additional magic point adds 50 minutes to the duration of the spell. And that's all the A spells. There we go. Holy cow, 34 minutes. Sorry it took so long. Maybe I'll break some of these other alphabets up. So we're not doing, maybe just do a couple pages at a time or something. Anyway, happy gaming.